So now that we know that the internet is a series of protocols that allow computers on a network to talk to each other, now we can think about how the internet is actually built. Now, I think a very useful analogy for the internet is the old postal system. Well, it's not old. People still use it, but maybe it's a little bit outdated. So hopefully you all remember how to send and receive mail, because that's something we'll use as an analogy for how the internet is built. So let's think about how the internet is built. Now remember, ultimately, the goal of the internet is just to move data from point A to point B. Now, what the data is doesn't really matter. But ultimately, the goal is my computer has some data. It could be a picture, it could be an HTML web page, and I want to send that to your computer. The internet should somehow magically achieve that for me. Now, in real life, there's something pretty similar. What if in real life I write a message on a piece of paper, like a letter, and I want to send that letter to someone else in the world? That's basically the same thing. I have a piece of data, and I want to move it from point A to point B. And the postal system achieves that for us in real life, and we'll compare it to the internet, which achieves it for us with computers. So if you want to move data, the first thing we'll need is something physical that can actually move data from point A to point B. So we're looking for some sort of physical, real-life process that can move data across space. Now, if we're thinking in terms of mail, there's lots of different ways that mail can move across space. You could have a mailman who carries a bag of mail. You could have the Pony Express. In the 1800s, they'd have some guy on a horse, and the horse would ride across the Wild West to carry your mail. You could have a carrier pigeon, and you tie the mail to the pigeon, and the pigeon flies away to its destination. You could have a truck with mail. There's all these different physical processes, and all of them allow you to move data from point A to point B. So this is the very first thing we need to start building our network, just anything that physically moves data. Now, the internet doesn't work on pigeons or Pony Expresses. So instead, on the internet, we still need technology that moves data across space. But instead of ponies or pigeons, the technology that we use tends to be more electrical engineering focused. So for example, maybe you have a wire that connects some computers. And if there's a high voltage, that's a 1. And if it's a low voltage, it's a 0. Or maybe you have some wireless technology where you're broadcasting waves, and somehow high frequency waves are 1 and low frequency waves are 0, something like that. You could have optical fibers where you send light beams down an optical fiber. So there's all these different electrical engineering ways that help you move data from point A to point B. Now, we're not going to talk any more about them, but all you have to know is that somehow at the very bottom, there is some physical process for moving data across space. So now that we have our first building block, which allows us to move data across space, the first thing we could try to do is to use that building block to link up people in a close area. So for example, if I'm trying to send mail, I could use my mailman to connect everybody in the local apartment complex. So now the mailman helps me carry mail in between all the different apartments in a local apartment complex. And if I connect up everybody inside a local apartment complex, I get something called a local area network, because it's only local to a small space. So that's my second building block. I know how to use my first building block, which is a physical process, to connect up everyone in a local network. And that gives me something that looks like this. So in the mail analogy, that might be linking up everyone inside your apartment complex. In the internet analogy, it might be something like using wires to connect up everyone in some local area. So for example, maybe everyone in UC Berkeley's network is connected with some sequence of wires. That could be something you could do to form a local area network here on UC Berkeley campus.